want to talk about a concept that you see people bandy about all the time on social media, like it's become some kind of trendy thing, and that's this idea of being vulnerable. A lot of people like talk about you need to be vulnerable, you need to show the vulnerable side, you need to do vulnerable stuff, and that's how you bond with people. And so people will do these things like cry and emote and everything. Come on. Emote and everything, whatever they can do to look like they're vulnerable. Sometimes it's an act. Some people just have that kind of personality where it's very natural for them to do that. My personal opinion, and as usual, it's not just an opinion, it happens to be a fact, is my version of vulnerability is a lot different. You see, for example, in any kind of fighting situation, it doesn't matter what style of fighting style you're using, action creates vulnerability. Commitment creates all vulnerability, to be more specific. When you commit to doing something, an action, whether it be throwing a punch or a kick or whatever, or enter into a fight or dive at someone's legs, whatever it is you do, once you do that, you are now vulnerable. Whenever you do any kind of commitment, gives you vulnerability. And this isn't just fighting. This is like anything in life, even like in relationships, anything. When you commit to something, you become vulnerable. Well, this is the kind of vulnerability I like to do. And this is the kind of vulnerability that I believe is best in business too, is taking action and committing to an action will create vulnerability. So, for example, when you send an email out, you are creating potential vulnerability. You might get a reply from someone that you don't like. You might lose a sale. You might get on someone's crap list. Who knows? It could be anything. You are technically vulnerable when you send an email out. Come on, Zoe, let's go. You're technically vulnerable, in a vulnerable state. Momentarily. You don't stay that way necessarily. But just the act of doing something makes you vulnerable. And people see that in business. They know this. They don't have to think about it. They don't rationalize it. It's just obvious. When you post something on social media, you are technically creating a vulnerability for yourself. It doesn't mean you're going to get attacked or anything. I'm just saying you created a vulnerability. When you give an opinion, come on, Zoe, let's go, come on. When you give an opinion on something, you are creating vulnerability. When you write something controversial, you are creating vulnerability. When you ask for the sale, you are creating vulnerability. When you go to a potential client, and ask them to give you money to work on something, you are creating a vulnerability. Come on, Zoe. So what's the alternative, though, right? I mean, like if this, sometimes this scares people, the idea of like having some kind of vulnerability like that. Well, the alternative is not doing anything. And not doing anything technically makes you vulnerable too, because now you're a sitting duck. Now this would go for a fight or anything else in business. If you don't do anything, your business is obviously going to grow, you're going to lose money, you're going to go out of business eventually. So no matter what you do, you're always in a vulnerable state. The question is, what kind of vulnerability are you going to do? Are you going to do this fake crybaby vulnerability? Like you see people do on Facebook and all this, let me tell you all about my shitty life and all this. And that's a form of vulnerability, but it's the wrong form. That's the kind of vulnerability that creates weakness and make people feel sorry for you. People will give you lots of likes and high fives and all that, but it's not going to do much for you. It's not the kind of vulnerability you want. The best kind of vulnerability is you simply taking action every day, not being afraid to do it. Come on, Zoe, let's go. Doing what you need to do. Send an email a day, for example, will create a vulnerability. And that's the kind of vulnerability that'll make you sales. That's the kind of vulnerability that your market will respect. And that's the kind of vulnerability that will give you a nice, solid business for the rest of your days. That's it for now. Over and out. Say bye, Zoe.